Home prices hit a record high. Trump proposes a solution. Let's hear it. This ought to be good.
This video, I want to bring up to speed on the housing markets. And this one involves President Trump and the Federal Reserve. So Jay Powell, chair of the Fed. Okay, so here's the situation. So if you didn't know, for the month of June, home prices have reached a new record high. And many people might be confused and say that I thought that the housing market was crashing. Well,
No. Honestly, I don't even know. I found out that like a crash for these people is like 20, 30%. Dude, I've been getting that when I was in crypto for freaking years, man. That doesn't scare me. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but if I get a home and it goes down 20%, I'm not really messed up about it, only because it's a home, man. I don't know. But yeah, I don't see the market going down.
that I'd say it depends. A lot of it depends on your region. So according to ICE, a mortgage technology firm, home prices are falling in about 1/3 of the US. But another way to look at it is that home prices are not falling, or they're even going up, in 2/3 of the US. So we're seeing home prices drop more notably in Florida and in Texas, but of course there's going to be exceptions within those states. But home prices are still climbing in the Northeast and in the Midwest. And again, that's generally speaking. But if you look at the national average for the month of June, home prices are up by 1% compared to 12 months ago. So as predicted, we're not seeing a housing market crash.
The only thing I think we're going to see is a slowing down of the increase of homes, but it doesn't mean. See, this is the funny thing. People it's all manipulated, right? So if it's only up 1% and they need home prices to be more expensive, they'll just raise the other rates, which will make, even though it's $447,000, make it feel like it's $453,000. So it's like, they have other ways of, and this is honestly disgusting, but it's just a system we live in. But this is why they have it set up like this, so that like they can make things seem good, or make it seem like they could have it up 3% in this year, but actually, because of the rates and all different mortgages and all this, I don't know, they can finagle their way where it's like, it's not as, they can basically make it however they need to.
Some people are going to say, well, in my area, home prices are down by 7%. But, I'm not going to deny that. But if that's the case, that just means that home prices are up by 8% somewhere else. So unfortunately, home prices remain high in the US. And combine that with elevated mortgage interest rates, the housing market remains unaffordable. Now, you may see headlines like this. So take a look. Home sales fall to a 9-month low. So just to clarify, this does not mean that home prices are plummeting. This just means that there's less activity. Fewer people are buying and selling homes.
Yeah, I wonder why. Nobody has any money to buy any homes. I feel like it's so crazy, man. The market is so manipulated that everything is at their whims, because they own it all and they control everything. It's really crazy, but it's like we're waiting for them to decide, okay, they had enough, let's move the market back up. That's what we're waiting for. We're not waiting for interest rate cuts. We're waiting for them to be like, okay, we bought enough. Let's move on.
And I would say that's not really a shocker, because when you have home prices at record highs and mortgage interest rates this high, then fewer people can afford to buy a home. And of course, there's going to be less transactions taking place. Now, in this type of environment, we're going to have more people that want to buy a home, but they can't afford to buy a home. So there's just going to be more people just sitting on the sidelines. And we're also going to have more homes that are sitting on the markets. So here are the number of homes that are available for sale. There's about 1.97 million homes for sale in the US right now. So that's 7.8% more compared to 12 months ago. So that's good, to see an increase in the inventory. However, this is still considered very low, because pre-pandemic, it was around 2.3 to 2.5 million.
Now, I
Now,
feel like a lot of those people who bought those homes are probably entities or something. I can't imagine too many of those people were regular people. I suppose it's possible. I'm sure a lot of them, but I'm telling you, man, I saw there was some guy talking about it how at like 2040 they're gonna own basically all the homes and like basically no one's gonna be able to drive a car, no one's gonna be able to buy a home. I don't know how this is gonna work. You know, it's very weird because right, unless they decide to create some weird public housing thing where like some I'm telling you, man, I believe in the Matrix and all that nonsense. And I'm telling you, man, I don't know if they're gonna build some huge building where poor people live and then like they walk to work or whatever the deal is. I don't know, man. It's gonna be crazy though, because they're basically just destroying everything. So yeah, the American dream has been dead for years, decades.
if there was a big supply and demand imbalance, like much more sellers than buyers, then we would see home prices plummet. But as you can clearly see, that is not the situation. Now, President Trump is criticizing Jerome Powell, who's the chair of the Federal Reserve. So President Trump is saying that the Federal Reserve is choking the housing markets by not lowering interest rates. So President Trump is essentially saying that if the Federal Reserve would lower interest rates, then mortgage interest rates would fall, and then homes would become more affordable, at least on the financing side, and then the real estate market would pick up again. But of course, as you know, Powell has not been cutting interest rates. The Federal Reserve, they're taking a wait-and-see approach, and this is upsetting President Trump. So here's the situation. This is the newest developments. President Trump is now suggesting a new tax break where any profits on selling a home would be tax-free. So the purpose of this would be to encourage people to sell their homes, which would add to the supply of homes for sale. Okay, so there's a few things that I do want to point out. I'll just name.
Hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. This is why this channel is called Everyday Bitcoin. Think about what he's saying right here and apply that to Bitcoin. I know, I also think this is crazy with homes, but I'm saying I really believe that they're going to eventually in the future say capital gains on Bitcoin will be tax-free. And I believe this will obviously super increase the price, but with the staking of Bitcoin, if you don't know what that is, just basically dividends, I feel like those are also going to be tax-free, which will be the new hot commodity, I guess, or I don't know, investment, whatever, that people will want after they buy all of it, and there will be none left. I'm just saying, but this is also the same thing with even homes, but I don't think they're gonna ever sell the homes, but I think it will encourage people to sell their homes and then they'll buy it, but I don't think they're ever gonna sell their homes. But basically I was just saying, I think Bitcoin's a nice investment. That's all I'm saying, man.
Three of them. So the first thing is that President Trump can't just make this happen with an executive order. Like, it's not just up to him. Congress would have to vote on it. And the second thing is that, well, of course, President Trump supports something like this because he's a real estate guy, along with many of his friends and associates. And the third thing is that profits on a home are already tax-free, up to $250,000 for a single person and $500,000 for married filing jointly.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
So Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced the No Tax on Home Sales Act in the House of Representatives.
I didn't know that. Well, I don't know. Honestly, man, all this stuff is so convoluted. I really should. One of these days, I'm going to read and go through my all my taxes and really figure out like what is going on. But dude, I just haven't had the time. But clearly they leave a lot of loopholes in there that we're just not taking a part of.
And President Trump said, we're thinking about no tax on home sales to unleash the housing markets. If the Federal Reserve would lower rates, we wouldn't even have to do this, but we're thinking about no tax on capital gains on houses. And Congresswoman Greene said, homeowners who have lived in their homes for decades, especially in places where values have surged, shouldn't be forced to stay put because of an IRS penalty. My bill unlocks that equity and helps fix the housing shortage. And the National Association of Realtors says that 29 million Americans would exceed the current $250,000 tax-free amount if they were to sell their homes. And 8 million Americans that file married filing jointly would surpass the $500,000 tax-free amounts. So in other words, this bill would impact millions of Americans if it were to pass. But as mentioned, President Trump says that they wouldn't even have to take these measures if the Federal Reserve would just lower their interest rates, the Fed funds rates. So this is the mortgage interest rates on the 30-year fixed, and this is coming straight from the Federal Reserve, and this is a 10-year chart. So as you can see, relatively speaking, it remains high in the upper 6% range, so close to 7%. So 6, 7. And Mark Zandi, who's a chief economist at Moody's, wrote on X, home sales, home building, and even house prices are set to slump unless mortgage rates decline materially from their current near 7% soon. That, however, seems unlikely. Now, I want to show you this. So this is a forecast of where mortgage interest rates are expected to end up by the end of this quarter, Q3, so end of September. Okay, so right now we're at 6.8%.
I feel like that's pretty high. I feel like, I don't know. Although I am really a newbie, I still feel like a lot of this stuff seems so overpriced, man, and it's crazy. Who's paying for this stuff, right? Like, I feel like that type of mortgage for 30 years, it seems crazy. Honestly, I don't even think, you know, the crazy part is most people, I feel like, well, I'm not going to say they're buying cash, but the richest of people are buying just straight cash, man. You wouldn't even have to, dude, I'm telling you, man, I'm staying away from any interest after all this clears up, man. No car loans. I don't even want rent. I don't want a mortgage. I don't want anything, bro. I just want to, like, you know, because then you're, like, in their web, you know. I didn't think it was this bad. Honestly, I'm telling you, I thought things would have cleared up probably a year ago. Still, here we are. And it's going to get worse.
30-year fixed. So the average prediction is that we're going to drop slightly to around 6.6%. But of course, you know, as you can see, that is the average expectation. The National Association of Realtors is predicting 6.4%, and the Mortgage Bankers Association is predicting that we're going to stay flat near 6.8%. But I just want to point out that there is the possibility that the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates, but mortgage interest rates don't drop by a lot or even go up. So that's because the Federal Reserve has more control over short-term interest rates. So they have less control over the 10-year interest rate and 30-year interest rates. So that is under normal circumstances. However, under more dire circumstances, yes, the Federal Reserve, they can buy 10-year and 30-year treasuries to lower long-term interest rates, which would make mortgage interest rates fall. But essentially, what I'm saying is that there's no guarantee that the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates will lead to a big drop in mortgage interest rates. And with Jay Powell as the chair of the Federal Reserve for the next 8 months, you know, during his time as he completes his term, I don't expect him to do anything drastic. But once Trump replaces Powell in the spring of 2026...
Can we hurry up and do that? Because this dude is just annoying. I feel like this dude is the biggest buzzkill. I mean, honestly, I know they're all working together, right? When they go to the back of the, you know, when everybody's gone, they're like shaking up, dapping each other, laughing. So I guess screw both of them. But I mean, they're all liars. Every politician is a liar. I don't care who it is. So, but can we at least get some liar in that actually is willing to pump crypto? And I guess, you know, just lower the interest rates. Lower it so that, like, it can appear, you know, like things are shooting up in price, but it's really just them. It's all just a scam, dude. I don't even know why I play into this, but sure, let's lower the interest rates so everything can shoot up in value. That makes sense.
It's most likely going to be a new Fed chair that's expected to cut interest rates significantly, and, you know, extreme measures are definitely going to be on the table. So for the remainder of 2025, I don't expect much relief on mortgage interest rates. I mean, you saw the chart. It's been range bound for such a long time. But in 2026, yes, we might see some big changes in the rates.
Nobody
for mortgage-
cares about 2026, man. I will be honest though, I am looking slightly for a home. I need to figure something out. I gotta get out of my apartment, which I mean the rent here is fine. It's perfectly fine. But nah, I gotta get out of here, man. This just isn't it anymore. But I don't know. I don't know what I can even afford. You know, honestly, like I've been trying to look for I want a cheap home so that I can just live on my own accord, you know. But I have to see, you know. You never know. But yeah, I'll see you guys next video, man. Deuce.